Hey everyone, hope all of you had an amazing day and welcome back to Theonopolis, where today we are... Actually, I originally planned to make the entire queue today, but because, well, I wanted to make the inside of an house and, inside takes a lot longer to build than the outside of a building. So yeah, we are just building this house. And it looks a lot bigger now than it ends up to be because I originally just planned to do the entire street and make all of that into the queue, but now you can sort of see the layout of the queue. So it does go through the house, and as I said, that is what the majority of today's video is going to be. So I might make another video finishing off the entire queue, but we will see, with Plan 2 coming around, it's going to be a very hectic few days, so I will see what I can do with that. But today we are going to just build another sort of realistic, historic, accurate, ancient Grecian house, because I can't stop building them. But yeah, we are finally also going to see a little bit of the inside of the building, because again, the queue actually does go inside of the building, because otherwise it would have been a bit boring if it just went around the house. So I just thought like, alright, let's make it one time that we can see the inside of the house and see how it actually works. So it's basically, this house has 3 rooms. Well, it has more, but queue wise it goes through 3 rooms. So the room that we're building right now is a little bit of like what I think what we would now say is like the living room or something like that. Although it has a lot more functions than that. It has a small office. It's a little bit of like a reception area. It's just basically everything that can't go into the courtyard happens in here. So if there's, let's say, a party or something, it will most likely end up in this room. And just to make it not as blocky, I made one small extension where the office area is going to be, because this entire house is for one family. It's a little bit larger than the, well, upper middle class home that we've built before, but that's also because the queue goes through it. And so, well, Planco, whenever it comes to queues, it's usually a little bit bigger because the pods are 4 by 4 meters. You can make the pods smaller, but I generally don't like to do that, because then it just, I don't know, I just don't like pods that are smaller than 4 meters. But anyway, I know that's kind of like going against what I said of like everything is a little bit larger in Planco, but then I make it larger myself because I don't like small pods. But anyway, so the other room that we're going through is, well, not so much, well, it has a function, but it's not as important of a room. Originally I thought to make this the bedroom, but then I thought like, alright, then it's going to be a very small or very low house. And I wanted to give this house a little bit of height. I mean, it is basically the entrance to the coaster. So I wanted to give it a little bit more like jaw-dropping effect. Like if I made just a low house, you would easily overlook it. And now that it's like, it's bam in your face, you will look at it, and then you will immediately see like, oh, this is where I should go if I want to go on the coaster. But also, if you aren't really going into the coaster, you're not really into that, then it's still like a nice thing to look at. And also from the other side, it doesn't really scream queue, because it's all inside, and from the outside it just looks like a normal house. So let's say from the boat ride that goes right next to this building, actually, you don't really see like, oh, this is a queue. You just see a building, you just see a house. And also, this is one thing that, well, actually I should probably talk also about the other thing that I started talking about, but kind of got rambled away on. But the other room that I was talking about, it's the second room that you go through when in the queue, is basically just an up or a stairs. Basically just a room for stairs to go up, because, the bedroom is now on the 2nd story or 1st story. for some reason I always call the first story of a building the second story, because I count the, well, ground floor as the first story. I don't know why I do that, but that just happens. But anyway, for some reason, maybe because I've been watching a little bit too much of those, like, I think Universal Studios scare mazes, I could really easily see how this building, actually this entire queue line for this entire coaster, could really easily be turned into like such a scare maze, because there are just so many nooks and crannies. There's a very set up part that is half enclosed, and it also goes below ground in some way. So that's just a thought that went into my mind constantly while building. It's like, alright, if you like put up like some kind of curtain or something over there, you could really easily hide like a scare actor behind it. Yeah, sometimes when I'm building, I just don't think of what I'm building. I just think of like, oh, in a real theme park, this could really easily be used for such a scare maze. Yes, I've been watching way too many of those, and also way too many videos of like the Haunted Mansion and Phantom Manor, or at least like Phantom Manor in Disneyland Paris and Haunted Mansion in everywhere else, I think. Like, I think the Phantom Manor is like the only or one of the few times where the Haunted Mansion was actually somewhat changed to fit in with another park. So, yeah, I've been watching too many of those like ride-throughs or POVs of Haunted Mansions and Phantom Manor, and then also scare mazes, so that's why, yeah. So, maybe, well, actually, I'm probably not going to change it into such a scare maze, because, well, it's not Halloween in Theonopolis. I don't think that there was such a thing even close to Halloween in ancient Greece. Maybe there is, and if there is, please do let me know, because that would be, well, actually I'm not that much into Halloween, so that would just be, well, like a nice little bit of information. Yeah, I've never been that much into Halloween. But anyway, so for the inside of the house, yes, we're going to talk about the third room later when we get to it, because I lose my mind on basically the first two rooms first, and then, you know, I can lose my mind over the third room, because the third room is completely set apart from the other rooms. You can, well, you can see it because, well, if you looked at it at like the right second, because, well, yeah, I don't, yeah, just if you pause the video at the right second, you could see like the layout of the queue. But actually, like, these two rooms are connected. Like, you can go from one room to the next basically completely indoors. But to get to the other room, or just the other section of the house, you need to go through the courtyard, which already shows, or already kind of explains what that room is going to be, if it's like so disconnected from the rest of the house that you need to go outside. And you will also see me go back into other builds, because like I've made a chair in Hotel Eros, which is on the main street, and I thought like, alright, if I change that one up, I can use that here. And I think for the third room, yes, for the third room I basically went over to the industrial area of Theonopolis and basically stole a pot from there, because like insides of buildings, basically like furniture stuff, I basically build stuff and then I'm like, alright, I can use this, or like it's not that heavily themed, so I can use it throughout the park. But then I still need to, of course, travel to where I've actually built it. And here is one of those like things where I just thought like, if you place a curtain here, a scare actor could really easily hide behind it. Well, that was not the thought going into it while I was placing these, well, basically sort of curtains. I originally just thought like, alright, this is a way to close off the office from the rest of the room. But yeah, I eventually just deleted them because they didn't look good in any sort of way. Also, luckily, that one wall separating these two rooms is two walls thick, or like, yeah, two walls thick, I would say. So the plant doesn't go through the room or through to the other side of the room. But here you can see that I just changed this room completely, because again, originally this was planned to be the bedroom, but then it would be a very small house, because then there would not be any need of other rooms, or at least there could be need for other rooms, but then it would be a very, well, it wouldn't be just a middle class slash upper middle class home anymore. Then it would become a little bit too large for that, or at least in my mind. So this just quickly changed into these stairs, because of course you're going throughout the entirety of the lower, well, the ground floor of this building. So it would look weird if there was just no stairs anywhere. I mean, yeah, in a lower class house, you might use like a ladder to get upstairs, if there is even an upstairs. But in a house such as this, where there's obviously a little bit more money in the family, then you will probably have normal stairs. I mean, for like the third room, there might be a ladder, but the third room is not, well, it doesn't have a first floor to it. Again, it kind of shows what the function of the third room is. But anyway, so for this, well, basically just the stairs. I mean, it's not really meant to be like the first room you enter, though it's certainly also built to be able to do that. So the office and this room can serve as an entrance depending on like what the, let's say, owner of the house wants. I mean, I want to say that to make it somewhat plausible, but it's really just because the queue needs to have an entrance and an exit to the building, and then to get into the next section of the building. And this is one of the very few times that I actually do the lighting on video. So yeah, I regularly don't do this. Like, almost never have I really done the lighting on video. But here it was just like, alright, this place will probably look the best if it's nighttime, because, well, then all the lighting is a lot better and a lot more suited to the building. And basically for the stairs room, which I'm just going to call the stairs room because that's a little bit easier, I just thought like, alright, under the stairs, because this is not completely meant as an entrance, there could be a little bit of storage. Like, it's just, well, otherwise it would just be a waste of space. So I just thought like, alright, what would the people here probably need? Well, I mentioned, like, let's say parties before, so I thought like, alright, there's going to be like need of like amphora to store wine or other things that might be very handy when, you know, you need to like have food and drinks available very quickly. And then I just thought like, alright, so this might also be the entrance area. And then I just thought like, alright, there needs to be a way to shield this from basically any guests. And I first thought, let's, you know, put like some kind of fencing in front of it, but then I just thought that's a little bit too heavy for the area. Like, it already has massive wooden beams, sort of thick staircase, so I just thought like, alright, I need something a little bit more light and a little bit more, well, a little bit more changeable, I would say. Like, you could easily just throw away those curtains if the area underneath the stairs is no longer used for, let's say, storage, and you don't need to shield anything from guest views. But yeah, so this area, it's nice, but it's not very like perfect. There's a lot of like just junk lying around, so it's just, yeah, I don't know what to say about it anymore besides it's nice and but not completely perfect. But I did want to make it look a little bit nicer, because of course otherwise it would just look like another storage area, and this is part of the like main household house, like the owners and his family, or the owner and his family probably will live here, so of course everything needs to be a little bit nicer for them. I also made a little bit of a shrine. I've already explained this in like the upper middle class family room house that I've built 2 episodes ago, but there will probably be a shrine to some kind of household deity like Hestia, but there's probably 1,000 other local deities, so I'm using the same statue because, well, all the other statues are a bit too large to be used. But this is probably just like a shrine to pray to a household deity, because that's just the thing that you always do. So that's basically the things that make it a little bit nicer to look at. And also, you can, well, not in this building, but in the next building, you can clearly see actually why I place all those beams that go like outside of the building, that are basically just on the edges of the walls. Yeah, I'm talking a little bit in like what is going to happen. But anyway, I also wanted to, like, this is maybe not completely historically accurate, but I just wanted curtains. I don't know why. Maybe, yeah, it's probably because the area still felt a little bit too empty. But then I also wanted to have like a little bit of realism, and like, where do they hang from? How are they like held back? So yeah, that's how these curtains came to be. And then I just quickly, like, I did this a lot, just like went into the queue and looked at how everything looked, so that it's like a little bit messy, but not messy enough that it's just like, alright, a bomb exploded here. So that's basically what a little bit went into the 2 first rooms of like the main house. Now I'm quickly adding doors, because of course a house like this needs doors. Like any house needs doors actually. But I basically just make one blueprint, I would say, of doors, or just one which I could use kind of throughout the entire building. So they're not very like, oh, this is the main house. They are very fancy. No, they are basic standard doors. Again, this is like a higher upper middle class home. I knew I would say that wrong at any point in the video, and so now that's out of the way. But they are very heavy doors, because, well, actually the courtyard also has doors, so there's like a double layer of protection. Also, like, the windows are so small that, like, if you, well, were a criminal or like wanted to steal from the house, you couldn't get in through the windows unless you were tiny. And I'm not saying like tiny, oh, you know, smaller than average size, but, you know, like really minuscule. Because the windows, again, are very small, just to keep like dust out, the heat out, and also keep a lot of privacy in the home. Then I thought, like, inside of the home, I didn't want to add more doors, because again, they are very heavy doors. So inside of the main building, I didn't add some like more doors to them. That sounds like Mordor from, you know, I think you get what I'm going at, but I basically just added a curtain so that if you wanted to close, let's say, the office area or living room area from the stairs, you could just easily just, you know, close the curtains. Also, this is one thing that you probably won't see from the queue line, but I was just happy that it was there. So that's why I placed it there, just to kind of like make it feel like, oh, if you look up from the queue, like if you like really just stretch your neck and almost break it, you could probably see it. But it's just there to give me like a little bit more peace of mind. And now we're basically just finishing up the main part of the house. So I'm kind of using the same techniques that I've used in almost every house that I've built so far, or like every somewhat historically accurate house that I've built so far. So it's like the same windows being used, but just, yeah, it's a lot easier to build a closed off house than building an actual inside to the building. Because again, a lot of Planco pieces are way too big to be used as furniture. Like they are meant to be just grand old buildings and not small little stairs and such. Or stairs, small little stools. Or chairs. I think the word that I was going for was chairs, but my mind just went stairs. Close enough, I would say. But yeah, it's a lot easier to just build shells, I would say. Because the upper floor, because it's not going to be seen, the windows aren't going to be open because, well, there weren't a lot of like large windows. And glass was very expensive, like it was around, but it was very expensive. So yeah, sometimes I'm thinking of like going back into the rest of Theonopolis and changing the windows, because I have certainly used a lot of those windows before I figured out that some of the pirate windows don't have like a back texture, so that if you turn them around there's no like, well, it's basically just the frame of the window and nothing else. So yeah, it's a little bit of like, well, a little bit of the complete first middle class building that I've built, which you can kind of see in the background. But then also it uses a lot of the like somewhat realistic, historically accurate middle or upper middle class home that I've built 2 episodes ago. So it's kind of just like combining all of them and then seeing what comes out of it. Also, this is one thing that I have done in every building, because, well, all of these buildings are sort of like based off of like, well, first of all, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which might not be the best source, but I just thought like, alright, these buildings look good, so I hope that Ubisoft did their research. But yeah, houses aren't really the things that survive, because, well, as you can see here, it's mostly either wood, a little bit of like rough stone, and then like plaster. So those things, well, maybe the foundation of the house would stay, but like the upper floors would probably be gone by now. So I'm just hoping that Ubisoft did their research. But anyway, so I think it was Athens, a lot of the buildings are blue. And this might be because blue was like an easy color to paint your house in. Like maybe it's a cheap color, I don't know. But I just liked it because, well, blue is also like the color of Athens. Like the Athens, or the flag of Athens in Assassin's Creed Odyssey was blue. So I just thought like, alright, a nice little reference to like the flag. And then, well, let's just say my favorite color is green. So I made every house in Theonopolis that is like painted green. So my palace is also green. So yeah, that's basically why most of the upper middle class or middle class homes are green. Because it's just my favorite color, and that might sound a little bit narcissistic, but it's also just a nice way to add color into a building. Because, well, otherwise this building would be beige or just like brownish and white. Because that were like the main colors, like the beige and brownish from the stones, and then the white from the plaster. And then you obviously have the wood, which also is brown, so it's just 2 colors. And making some of the buildings green, or making some parts of the building green or another color, because I've also used red in, if I'm correct, it's in the upper middle class, somewhat historically accurate home that I've built 2 episodes ago. But all the other things are usually green, and in some like limited amount of cases red, because, well, red and green are like contrasting colors, so it makes the buildings just pop a little bit more. Like if I went for, let's say, something that went well with green, I'm trying to think of like the color wheel of like things that go good with green, such as, let's just say, yellow. That would just blend in with the green, and it wouldn't make anything like pop out. Using contrasting colors next to each other without, well, let's rephrase that. Using contrasting colors without making one of them outscream the other works really well. Or at least from what I've seen so far, of what I've built so far. This building is, well, if you look at it in a certain way, you can see the basically completely red building that we've built previously. And it's not, well, it doesn't fight with each other, I would say. So yeah, that's basically just the thought process that went behind it. Most of it though is just because my favorite color is green, so I just wanted to make a building green. And while there is like a little bit of like setup, because most, well, temples and such that right now or today are completely white because all of the colors has been faded from it, were usually pretty heavily painted. I'm sort of happy that all those colors faded, because some of those statues would be terrifying if all of the colors still remained to this day. But yeah, most of them were very brightly painted, so that's basically what I said to myself to give myself a free pass on what we're building right now. Or actually what we've been building for quite a long time. Because I just can't stop building these buildings. I've somewhat fell in love with them. And, well, I'm sort of happy that I went insane, basically. So I can build another episode. And that might not be on, like, strictest of schedules. I hope to get the next episode out this week. And then we will take a short break because, of course, Plan Zoo is going to happen. I think by the time that you're watching this video, I'm probably already playing Planet Zoo. So, yeah, the next episode of, well, basically building this queue and finishing up this coaster might not be on the strictest of schedules. But now we are finally in the third room. Actually, we've been here, but I kind of just, well, went off rambling, and now I look at the footage and I see where we're at. So, yeah, you can probably already tell a little bit of like the setup of this room, or like how it's, where it's located, how it's basically entered and such. That, how can I say this? Well, this would probably be the slaves' quarter. Like, this would be where the slaves or the servants lived. Yeah, basically just giving them a rough wooden bed. I wanted to give them a pillow. It's a little bit sad that there was like a main concern of like, yeah, let's give them a pillow, because it's just a wooden frame and then just a piece of cloth to basically act as a blanket. So basically that's the reason why there's a lot of straw around, so that, you know, if they wanted to lay down, they would just probably grab like a bundle of straw to lie upon, or at least have like a little bit of sort of a pillow. It's also, well, also built kind of like, not clothes hanging to dry, but just like fabrics hanging for some reason, just to give them a little bit of privacy. But, yeah, this is I think the worst thing, but the thought that went into my mind while building this is that it very much began to look like, how do I call this? Like a cow shed. It probably has a better word for it, but you guys know me, I always tend to forget the easiest words. So yeah, it kind of went into looking like that, like, or cow pen, or some kind of animal pen. I also wanted to make locks on like the gate to get to the like beds, and yeah, in the end I removed that because that just felt a little bit too unnecessary. I did give them a little bit of like a side table, like a small little table which holds one candle, because well, it's probably not the worst place to live, but it's certainly down there somewhere. But yeah, it's basically a storage area in which they dumped a couple of beds. Yeah, maybe not the best living conditions, but I mean, there are always these stories about like, oh, back then slaves were like treated really badly, and of course that probably could have happened. I mean, certainly has happened, otherwise those stories wouldn't be there. But from what I know so far, that was not every case. There were people that, even though they were slaves, were treated somewhat well. They were still seen as property, which is wrong on many levels, but then it's also like a society from 2000 years ago. In those 2000 years, hopefully a lot has changed. So yeah, like, it's good to look at a society that has brought so much, but still see that they were flawed, at least with the mindset that we have nowadays. So yeah, back then slavery was so normal that you basically didn't blink over it. Nowadays we know that that is completely wrong. But yeah, I don't want to make this anywhere like political, but just to sum it up, it's great to look at like the ancient Grecian civilization for everything it has brought, but do still realize that it's a civilization from 2000 years ago with a lot of different beliefs. No, I'm not trying to talk slavery into a good thing. It's still a horrible thing. Yeah, let's just talk about the building again, because otherwise this is going to go way off topic. But yeah, so I wanted to make it more into a storage area, but then of course I needed to keep the pod clean, and as I said before, I like to have the queues be 4 meters broad, so I needed to find another way to store some more stuff. Then I just made some, lost the word for it, and I think I will find it out when I stop recording, because that's what always happens, but just a lot more storage area for a lot more pots, a lot more just stuff. Also a few racks, just a little bit of a ladder, because I do realize that that wall is 4 meters high. And yeah, quickly just stealing, I think it's like a roasted coffee, well, a pot with roasted coffee beans, because I mean that's the one part that of Theonopolis that isn't completely realistic, because I mean we have coffee in Theonopolis way before it was even discovered. And then also adding some cobwebs, because this is not the place that's going to be thoroughly cleaned. Like, it's a storage area. I would find it amazing to find like a storage area back then that didn't have cobwebs or some kind of dirt, because let's just say I added the broom for a reason. But anyway, that's going to be it for today. There's going to be one more episode on, I wanted to say on Theonopolis, but there are going to be more episodes, but it's going to just take a short break. But before we go on a little bit of a break with Theonopolis, we are going to finish off this coaster. I don't know when that episode will come out, because Plan 2 is going to come, and by the time you're watching this, I'm probably playing already. And so I hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, I hope to see you back in the next one. I hope you like the video, because it does help out. And I hope to see you in the Mystery Zoo. Have an amazing day, guys. Bye bye.